Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Swallowed Star based on novel. So let's start. Within an area with a diameter of 10,000 kilometers, the translucent void engravings floated around. Anything within this space had its space ripples stopped. At this point, Blood Beast and Heavy Arrow were both nervous and angry. They communicated mentally. Purple Clock, didn't you say this human was weak, not knowing how to teleport or perform space lock? These engravings. Purple Clock looked on in shock. Right, these are the engravings from the tower. It must be some special weapon from the treasure chest that allowed this human to do this. This is unbelievable. This human Yang definitely doesn't know space lockdown. Don't you see the surrounding floating engravings? Purple Clock replied. These are common engravings from the statues about Yang Ji. He must have gotten a special weapon to do this. Relying on a weapon to use space lockdown. Both emperors were shocked, after which they laughed excitedly and greedily. Such a treasure was priceless. It was definitely a true treasure. We've struck gold. Give it your all, kill that human. Just that treasure alone would be plenty for us. It may seem slow, but their conversation actually only took an instant, as they were rushing towards Luo Feng. While it seemed like they were doing a combined attack, Purple Clock was much slower than the other two. Bring it. Luo Feng flapped his wings and became a beam of light, drawing closer to Purple Clock. The three warriors surrounded Luo Feng. They were filled with killing intent. Yang, you are dead. Purple Clock smiled with excitement. Very good, just like that. Luo Feng felt the distance between the enemies draw closer. Suddenly he smiled widely. Now. He flipped his hand. Two glowing red-black crystals appeared. These crystals seem round. In truth they each had 10,081 sides, and had space engravings locked within. Both of them gave off terrifying energies. What did he take out? Blood Beast Emperor's single eye gleamed, carefully looking. The three of them were from the automaton camp, and these crystals were created by the automatons. They were common but expensive. The Emperor limits couldn't bear to buy such weapons, but they were extremely familiar with most sorts of weapons. Just one look scared the wits out of them. My God, it's the strongest flame god crystal, it's the strongest flame god crystal. Blood Beast was filled with rage and shock, immediately slowing down to flee. It's the strongest flame god crystal. Heavy Arrow had finally seen it clearly too. He too was stunned, not even hesitating to turn and try to flee. What? The excited Purple Clock was shocked by the scene. He couldn't care less as well, as he immediately turned to flee. Madman, a pure madman, that's the strongest flame god crystal. Blood Beast howled. Even an emperor limit may fall from that, and he took out two of them together. The moment it explodes, even if I don't die, I'd be in a terrible state. Each crystal is worth hundreds of billions of indigo gems, and two is twice that. How did he get two of them? And how can he dare to take out two? Is he not afraid of dying from it? Flee, that's a madman. Purple Clock, the human you are dealing with is a madman. Heavy Arrow roared. Flee. Purple Clock gritted his teeth. Luo Feng had indeed brandished the strongest flame god crystal. It took a lot of work to condense and stabilize so much energy. This strongest crystal cost Luo Feng, with his primal chaos city leader disciple position, close to 30 billion mixed elements each. Like Heavy Arrow, Blood Beast or Purple Clock, those not from the automaton camp had to spend at least hundreds of billions of indigo gems to purchase one of these. One mixed element is about 2 indigo gems. Back when Purple Clock took out a flame god crystal worth 10 billion mixed elements, it was already akin to 3 times a pinnacle emperor's explosion. And the ones Luo Feng just took out were akin to 10 times a pinnacle emperor's explosion. It had a certain guarantee of making an emperor limit fall. And taking out 2 at a time, even if Purple Clock used his ancient clock to diffuse 90% of the force, he was only a pinnacle emperor. How could he dare defend against it? Flee. 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 The three howled within, all cursing that they couldn't teleport. Only then did they realize why the human had used space lock. It was obviously to stop them from fleeing. You won't make it. Luo Feng casually tossed the two crystals in different directions. They had already ignited. The three of them slowed to a stop. They had just begun to flee when the terrifying strongest flame god crystals began to explode. It was almost like 1,000,000 stars exploding instantly. Two supernovas were instantly formed as the terrifying energy condensed within was unleashed. The space about were instantly reduced to stream particles, as the space slits had countless fragments that were melted into particles. Madman, madman, madman. Blood Beast howled. Is he not afraid of death? Does he have enough confidence to survive the two crystals head-on? No. Blood Beast howled. Rumble. A huge beast projection appeared behind him. It was of a furry peculiar beast with blood-colored eyes and stars. He had obviously given his all to protect himself. He didn't wish to die just like that. Simultaneously, the glaring stars of destruction was so bright that no one could open their eyes. It completely engulfed Blood Beast. Just who did this purple clock mess with? Is he completely going for suicide? Heavy Arrow was filled with rage. He had many trump cards, but could use none on Luo Feng before the two crystals exploded. I must survive, I must survive. Heavy Arrow roared. Otherwise, I can only wait for the distant future where I will be revived. However, once I'm revived, it's akin to selling my soul to the automaton race. No. Silence. The light instantly engulfed Heavy Arrow. How can he be so crazy? His defense is very strong. Does he have a space fortress or god base? Is he hiding within something like that? However, even a knight cannot afford a god base. So, he can't have one either. He has defensive treasures, but how can he possibly survive this? I must withstand it. Then I'll kill him after and take his treasure. I still haven't used all my trump cards. Purple Clock was sullen. Letting the two Emperor Limits attack first was only the first part of his plan. He was the type to let the strong be his cannon fodder. Just like back in the tower, he first let Gold King lead him. When things were going bad, he instigated for the others to kill each other till he remained. This time was the same. He first let the two Emperor Limits go, and had them dig out Luo Feng's trump cards. However, the moment his trump cards were out, it was too terrifying. Two strongest flame god crystals. I have to withstand it. An ancient clock appeared around his body, within a silver light glowed. Simultaneously, the glaring white light swallowed him up. Purple Clock and the others never expected Luo Feng to be that crazy. This was just the first move and it was absurd. Even though its power was great, it had a great flaw, which was that it attacked everyone without prejudice. The strongest force was within this tens of thousands of kilometers. Luo Feng naturally was hit by it too. That white light engulfed him too. There was silence. The glaring white light engulfed tens of millions of kilometers around. Everything within the area, the ground, rocks, underground palace, everything was reduced to particles. After a prolonged silence, explosions occurred all over as a formless pressure rushed in all directions, knocking away the distant mountain ranges, tearing apart the ground and canyons millions of kilometers away. Human, you will die, you are definitely dead. Within his ancient clock, Purple Clock howled. In that instance, he was reduced to ashes. Even though the clock would diffuse 90% of the force, this was after all the strongest flame god crystal. It had a power capable of killing even an Emperor Limit. Even after diffusing 90%, with two strongest crystals exploding, as all four of them were caught in the strongest blast region, he was naturally destroyed, and part of his undying body was destroyed too. He lost over 50% of his undying body. Even so, he managed to survive. I'm not dead, I'm not dead. He howled within. He began to reform his undying body in the ancient clock. If I'm not dead, that means you will die. A silver arc tore through the white glowing sky, rushing below the ancient clock. It was a silver-armored and winged Luo Feng. He held in his hand a blade, a purple light glowing on its edges, it was obviously the poison shadow blade. He slashed at the bottom of the ancient clock, at the reforming particles of purple clock. Purple clock, let me send you off. Luo Feng howled at the reforming undying body. The Fei Mo poison on the blade madly attacked at his undying body. It seeped in, and even though it was harder to actually destroy an emperor limit's body, against a pinnacle emperor, especially one that had over 50% destroyed already, it caused the body to instantly crumble. Purple clock was reduced to ashes from the explosion. Just as he was reforming, Luo Feng found him, and he was stunned. How can this be? The time between my reforming is only that short. How did he rush over in such a short time? Unless the flame god crystal explosion didn't destroy his body. That's impossible. In truth, Luo Feng's body was fine from the explosion. Back then, in the sacrificial tower, when the elder Chiao Kai Ka had exploded in the room, Luo Feng could withstand it head-on. This flame god crystal explosion was tens of times stronger than that one. Back then, the room was completely shut. This explosion, however, happened in such a vast space. Theoretically speaking, the enclosed explosion back then would definitely create a bigger force. Chiao Kai Ka had exploded alone. This time, however, there were two crystals. After the two were combined, it add up to 10 times the explosion force of Chiao Kai Ka's in the enclosed room. Back then, Luo Feng's cloud contact armor was at pinnacle official level, and its sturdiness was akin to a low emperor. Now, it was a low emperor, but was akin to a high emperor human. Through the Shogu wings and general armor diffusing the force to only 1,000th, akin to a low emperor explosion, and with the high emperor cloud contact armor, it only barely managed to break through the cloud contact armor slightly. Hence, it was unable to completely destroy it. Compared to the tower back then, the explosion this time was 10 times stronger, but my cloud contact armor has also grown. You were all reduced to ashes, but I'm totally fine. Luo Feng rushed straight through the explosion. Accurately speaking, it was because of the wings and the general armor that the cloud contact vine could withstand it. As long as it could do that, Luo Feng would be fine. He easily withstood the force, plus purple clock was only a few thousands kilometer away. With just a flap of his wings, he naturally reached beside him. Just as purple clock was reforming, Luo Feng acted according to his plan and slashed him with the poison shadow blade. This blade was vicious. How could he get here so fast? Purple clock was filled with suspicion. However, as he realized Luo Feng's blade slash over, he mocked, "Even the flame god crystal couldn't kill me, your blade cannot even tear through my undying body, it's simply too, A blade slashed through. The poison shadow blade tore into his broken undying body, and right away the Fei Mo poison began to destroy his body into pieces. No. Purple clock was completely shocked by the poison. He instantly chose to break off that part of his undying body, but it was too late. An emperor limit required about 10 drops of poison to die, but a pinnacle emperor only needed 1 drop. And usually with quick reflexes, one slash would only have about 0.3 to 0.8 drops of poison entering the body. Purple clock only had less than 50% of his body left. The 0.72 drops of poison instantly ran through his body onto every fragment, invading every cell. He had no way to defend against it. It's over. He instantly understood. I'm about to die. He was filled with rage and regret. However, before he died, he swiftly connected to the virtual world. Virtual world. Mass send. Send mail to everyone. His consciousness formed a body that stood in the living room and raged. According to his plan, one part of it was if he couldn't deal with Yang, he would drag in a large number of other emperors. He had prepared this mail long ago, even the location and coordinates were in the cave he was in. The mail was sent out like snowflakes, instantly reaching large numbers of emperors in the automaton camp. That Yang has appeared. Where? Sacrificial tower treasure. Ha ha ha. His appeared. The large number of emperors received the mail and immediately reacted. Even though they were very excited, these emperors weren't stupid. They couldn't teleport immediately, because there were very few that could actually teleport, and also, what if it was a trap? Hence, they began to form their alliances. With groups of emperors together, they would be much stronger and less fearful of a trap. Ha ha, ha ha ha. Purple Clock felt his consciousness crumble. He simply looked up and laughed madly. He didn't lead an ordinary life, having acquired the ancient clock, and even killing 2 emperor limits, and many other pinnacle emperors. He was definitely considered an absolute being amongst the Chi-Chang race. In his heart he still had hopes of becoming a knight, of becoming a greater being. However, because he messed with the human yang, even though he had prepared adequately, none of his plans could be used in time. The Flame God crystal explosion and the Fei Mo poison instantly took his life. Even if I die, don't think you'll get off easy. He howled fiercely. His consciousness became a bubble and broke, vanishing forever. He would never reappear. Even though he was from the automaton camp, the high and mighty universe masters of the automaton race may revive a large number of warriors in the future. However, for the Chi-Chang race, they would at most revive the emperor limits. Even if his luck was good and he was chosen, because he had fused with the ancient clock, it had a great effect on the revival. The backlash from the revival would be akin to the revival of a knight. Hence, once the universe masters discover the ancient clock on him, they would most probably give up on reviving him. Having true treasures and falling made it harder for revival. And if one wanted to forcefully destroy the treasure and revive, the price would be 10 to hundreds of times that of the treasure itself. Simply carrying the treasure alone made revival extra hard. Purple Clock, who had the ancient clock, was set never to be revived. Unless the universe master was willing to take the backlash. Purple Clock, hence, fell. In the distant regions of Yangji continent, there were many emperors from the automaton camp that were chatting within the virtual world. The warriors with teleportation began to gather the others all together. And Meng Emperor, the news suddenly broke out, and it's from Purple Clock Emperor. It was obviously sent in a group mail to all the warriors. Would this be some ploy? A group of oddly appearing emperors all gathered in mid-air. The only similarity they shared was they were all from the automaton camp. It might be some trap. But it could be true too. The group all communicated. Suddenly one short and stony god shouted, "I tried contacting Purple Clock. The virtual world informed me that is fallen." Already fallen. Dead? All the suspicious emperors had tried too. The virtual world system did reply to them all, letting them know that he had fallen. This made them instantly trust the message that was sent. At least 90%. The system's record of his death meant he was connected when he fell, hence it naturally knew of his situation. Everything had to be scanned before confirmed. Like the Yunmo planet master Hu Yangbo, he had never opened his connection to the virtual universe to scan himself. When he fell over 10,000 years ago, no one ever knew. Hurry and go. Purple Clock has fallen, the battle must have been intense. The group all shouted excitedly. However, large amounts of our automaton warriors will definitely go. With our numbers, we need not fear him. We can teleport directly to hundreds of thousands of kilometers away from the location. Even if there's trouble, we'll be prepared. Let's go. The group instantly vanished and rushed to the fight. Even though they all had different levels of strength, with even some low emperors, they weren't afraid. Because there was no killing within the same camp. As long as large amounts of them worked together, they would be naturally safe. What's more, killing an emperor wasn't exactly an easy thing to do. They all regarded Purple Clock's death as something that the enemy had to pay a huge price for. Yangji continent, in the distant Star Tower. Groups and groups of automaton emperors began to teleport to the fight. Of course, the emperors in Yangji continent naturally reached first. As for the distant Star Tower, they first had to find a safe spot before teleporting via God Country, and finally teleporting to the target spot. This alone took quite some time. At the battleground, the broken space began to madly recover. One could visibly see the space reforming. Ah! Blood Beast Emperor howled, as his body was completely reformed. I actually lost 42% of my undying body. How long would it take me to recover? His single eye was filled with rage. The loss of his body meant the loss of his soul, and such a huge loss required a long time to recover. He could actually use treasures in the universe to assist in the recovery, but they were all incredibly expensive. Hence, how could he afford to do so? On the other end, I lost 59% of my undying body. Heavy Arrow had it worse. I don't even have 10% of my original strength. Even a pinnacle emperor can suppress me. Even though the strongest flame god crystal had the ability to kill an emperor limit, who wouldn't have their own defenses. Special armor or techniques to decrease attacks, 20%, 30%, along with plant life forms, metal life forms etc., emperor limits would normally have all of these. Even so, they still suffered heavy losses. At the other end, the silver-winged and armored Luo Feng wielded the poison shadow blade. Looking at the items left behind from the fallen purple clock, he swept the world rings, armor, ancient clock, and everything into his own world ring. Thanks, purple clock, Luo Feng said softly. He turned, tens of thousands of kilometers away. The space shook violently, as tens of emperors suddenly appeared. In another direction, the space shook too as groups and groups of emperors began to arrive. When the first batch of 10 emperors appeared tens of thousands of kilometers away, Blood Beast, Heavy Arrow, and Luo Feng were on the move. I've lost 42% of my undying body, and that human actually withstood the entire blast. It's unbelievable. If he uses another flame god crystal, I may fall. It isn't worth losing my life over the sacrificial tower treasure. Blood Beast swiftly flew at his max speed, trying to rush out of the space lock area. Flee. The damaged Heavy Arrow chose the same path. These two were scared off by the explosion. The first explosion destroyed everything around them. With two strongest flame god crystals, that was akin to 200 billion indigo gems instantly reduced to nothing. Its power, however, was shocking. To survive this first wave alone was hard enough, they didn't have the confidence to take another. They both flew simultaneously in different directions. There's just this one human. He can only chase one of us, and the space lockdown area is only so small. There is no way he can get both of us. Both emperors' thoughts were similar. With a diameter of 10,000 kilometers, this was truly very small area to such warriors. As long as they rushed straight out, if Luo Feng hesitated for even a second, they would be able to escape. However, at Luo Feng's level, how could he lose focus at the critical moment? Heavy Arrow suffered more damage. I'll deal with him first. He flapped his wings and shot after Heavy Arrow. Ha ha. Blood Beast and Luo Feng flew in different directions. He naturally escaped the space lock region. I won't stay here any longer. He glanced at the stunned 10 emperors that just appeared. Smiling coldly, those punks, they can only hope the human doesn't go crazy again. If he does, their little bit of strength would be destroyed by the flame god crystals. It's time to leave. He didn't dare stay any longer. He vanished and teleported far away. The automaton camp and Meng Emperor, and the other group of tens of emperors had just arrived. But, the scene in front of them certainly shocked them. An area over 10 million kilometers of vast land, rivers, mountains, snow, everything was gone, leaving nothing but a wasteland. The ripples from the terrifying explosion before were still resonating around the area. Just the ripples alone were enough to make the emperors shudder. What shocked them even more was the incredibly renowned and invincible Heavy Arrow and Blood Beast Emperor. These two emperor limits were fleeing madly in two different directions. Blood Beast managed to escape and teleport. Heavy Arrow, however, was being chased by a silver-winged and armored human. Just what happened here? Madness. This. The emperors were all stunned and pondering as the scene before them was simply too unexpected. What sort of attack would reduce such a huge area to nothing? How terrifying of an attack was this? Even an emperor limit wouldn't be able to do so much damage. Madness. It's no wonder Purple Clock fell. What happened here? Blood Beast and Heavy Arrow are both emperor limits. How can they be losing? Blood Beast has escaped, but Heavy Arrow is being chased. They were stunned. In mid-air another batch of emperors appeared, and another. The many groups began to rush over as the numbers quickly exceeded 100. However, when they arrived, they were all stunned. According to the explosion ripples and the area of wasteland, they could easily deduce just how terrifying the attack was. It was able to completely destroy all of them. And the scene of Heavy Arrow fleeing scared them. What's going on in Meng? Why is Heavy Arrow being chased? Another group of emperors that arrived later asked. Not just him, Blood Beast was scared off earlier. Blood Beast escaped. Isn't he good friends with Heavy Arrow? Who knows? Purple Clock has fallen. I feel that this may be troublesome. Attention all, this doesn't seem too good. I'll take my leave first. Su. A Pinnacle Emperor immediately teleported away. What a joke. Any of them being able to survive till Emperor level would all be incredibly wise. If even Blood Beast escaped and Heavy Arrow was being chased, while Purple Clock fell a while ago, including the tens of millions of kilometers of wasteland, it all proved one thing. It proved that this area was extremely dangerous. A point where even Emperor limits could fall. Since their strength difference was obvious, the naturally wiser ones would choose to leave. Look! Heavy Arrow is in danger. The stunned emperors all looked on at the distant battle. Luo Feng had picked Heavy Arrow to attack, because he had suffered greater damage. Normally, any Undying with 50% damage on his Undying body would only have 10% of their strength left. One had to know that the initial small losses on the Undying body didn't affect their strength much, but as the damage grew, the effect became more absurd. Losing within 10% of the Undying body had almost no effect at all on their strength. Losing 30% would leave only 50% of their strength. Losing 50% would leave only 10%. Losing 70% would leave less than 1% of their strength. After losing 90%, they would fall into a coma and they would lose their consciousness. Only after long periods of time in their comatose state they might slowly recover, or even slowly fade away until they died. Anyway, in that state, they had no defense at all. It was clear that the loss of the Undying body had a huge effect on their strength. After losing 59% of my Undying body, my strength is only a little stronger than a High Emperor. Heavy Arrow was worried as he saw Luo Feng catching up. His silver wings left 3 warps in space and he immediately caught up. The two of them had a huge difference in speed. Die Heavy Arrow. Luo Feng's eyes gleamed coldly. Human, don't get ahead of yourself. Heavy Arrow immediately pulled out a completely black and silver bow with an arrow lodged in the middle. It was rare to see a bow and arrow user in the universe, because it couldn't compare to a spirit weapon. However, the genuinely knowledgeable users were terrifying. Relying on the bow itself, it could amplify their strength greatly. The bow launched the arrow. A black arrow with yellow traces tore through tens of kilometers. The land and skies were silent as a long slit was left in the space. The power of the arrow was obviously condensed, even the slit was incredibly fine. However, as the arrow hit Luo Feng's wings, it barely even moved a feather. Since it could even withstand the Flame God crystal explosion, naturally this was nothing. You only had that one chance. Luo Feng flapped his wings and got close, not giving his enemy another chance. Die. He brandished the poisoned shadow blade. With both the wings and blade, he unleashed Moon Policy. Using his own pinnacle technique with his High Emperor strength, with the Showa wings' internal space energy, it had terrifying tearing abilities. The power of his attack was amplified further as the wings produced a silver light, slashing through Heavy Arrow's armor, and the poison blade slashed at his undying body. What? He didn't even have time to dodge as he got slashed, feeling the Fei Mo poison begin to invade his body. Tear. He wanted to cut off that part of his undying body. Cloud Contact Vine. Luo Feng wouldn't give him the chance. 10 vines shot out from his shoulder and fiercely wrapped about Heavy Arrow. Heavy Arrow had originally lost 59% of his undying body. That slash earlier made him lose over 80% of his power. Even the Cloud Contact Vine could forcefully hold him at this point, and the most peculiar thing was the 3 vines that wrapped around him had 3 thorns that pierced deep into his body and held him in place. The slash earlier along with the 3 stabs, all contained Fei Mo poison on it. Luo Feng had managed to create 9 thorns with the poison, and every one of them with 30 drops of the Fei Mo poison. However, because he was already in a tragic state before, having lost 59% of his undying body, it made his overall body fall to only 12%. Kai! 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 The 3 thorns immediately pulled themselves out. They were afraid of staying within for too long, as it would immediately poison Heavy Arrow to death. Heavy Arrow's eyes went vacant as his consciousness faded, not even moving within the cloud contact vine. Even though 10% was the definite comatose level, according to the different levels of willpower, some would go into a coma at 15% or 16%. At this point, Heavy Arrow had fallen into a coma. Keep. Luo Feng immediately kept the comatose Heavy Arrow into a separate world ring. Everything happened extremely quickly. The other emperors around the area could all see that Heavy Arrow had already suffered huge losses, and from the battle after, his strength wasn't even at pinnacle emperor. The human's strength wasn't even enough to scare off the huge number of emperors. Hence many were still hesitating, with only very few having fled first. Most chose to simply stay and watch. The space ripples kept shaking as more batches of emperors arrived. Just one human. That's him, the human Yang. Kill. Get the treasure. The 6th batch had just arrived with 21 emperors. They saw that the one human Yang was surrounded by over 100 emperors. But they had no way to know that the earlier emperors were stunned by the scene before. By coming later, they didn't get to see Blood Beast fleeing, or Heavy Arrow being forced into a coma. They just assumed the human was surrounded. Hence, the greedy emperors decided to rush in first, and this batch of 21 completely went for it. Rumble. The greedy group of emperors became resplendent beams of light shooting straight at Luo Feng. This group of idiots. It's not their fault. If we didn't witness the scene of Blood Beast fleeing or Heavy Arrow entering his coma, we would have rushed in too if there was only one human there. Anyway, we are all from the same camp, we don't have to worry about fighting each other for the treasure. Just a matter of whoever gets it first. The other onlooking emperors chatted. Part 1 end here.